and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is someone who is currently enjoying a delicious slice of chocolate cake. It's Lisa Leaheey.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. How's that cake treating you?
It's some good cake. I'll tell you, there's nothing like some walnut to make a sweet that much better.
And chopping lots and lots of walnuts, by the way. And we
Absolutely, with a giant knife.
And so normally,
how else do you do it?
We'll get into that later. I don't want to make fun of allergies because I have a shellfish allergy. And I remember 2 years ago, I was in Maine and they were steaming lobsters. And I was like, oh, I'm okay because I'm not eating it. But the steam got in my throat. And I looked at my wife and my mother-in-law and I went, can you two breathe? And they're like, yeah, we're fine. So I had to run outside and get air just from the steam with like the lobster proteins in them. So I totally get, I don't totally get what happened to poor Charlie, but I get those allergies. They're no fun, but
that's scary.
Yeah.
I don't have any, fortunately, I guess fortunately for me, but being a teacher, obviously, you have to be hyper aware of those kinds of things. And I mean, we can get into more detail when we get there, but just the idea of my throat's getting bigger, I can't imagine that kind of terror, that kind of, I can't fix this. So, I mean, that alone is horrifying in itself. So I can't imagine being out in a restaurant and just suddenly not being able to breathe just because you're breathing the air. Oh, my goodness.
It was wild. And I think it's a bit of karma because when my wife when Megan was my girlfriend, she made shrimp one night for us. And so I ate mine a lot quicker. And so she had some left. So I kissed her. And when I was kissing her, I grabbed one of her shrimp and I stole it from her. So I'm not saying that's what gave me the shrimp allergy, but it's a bit of karma there because I stole her shrimp. Goodness. And you develop it later in life, some of these allergies. So I just remember I stole her shrimp. A few months later, I'm allergic to shellfish.
Oh, no. I think she might have, put a hex on you. You might want to look out for Megan.
Is that why triangles and little things are written on the walls in my entire home? And I smell something in the attic?
No, that's totally just part of the decor.
Wait, am I getting paymoned?
I don't know anything about that. Sorry.
Wait, but didn't you tell me a story one day outside of a craft store about what happened to your...
yeah, you're right. When I bought that chalkboard.
Yeah. Oh.
Was that what it was? Yeah, it was the chalkboard, right? That was in the back of the hatch.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say, I brought Lisa, I brought you in to talk about Brightburn as our last episode. And that's a movie that you enjoy because you're really big into villains.
I am.
I was not really into Brightburn. And we had a good time, though, unpacking it, examining why it has such a cult audience and talking about it. And I love that. And I got talking to you again about what other movies you love. And you brought up Hereditary. And this is a movie, 89% Rotten Tomatoes. It's just it had Oscar buzz. Toni Collette didn't get nominated. People are really angry. Ari Aster directed
Still aggravated about that. Yep.
The cinematography by Paul Pogorzelski is excellent. Grace Yoon is the production designer, and they built this really neat house on a stage that's meant to mimic a dollhouse. And technically speaking, with the shots and the performances, and these actors gave everything. Alex Wolff had to go to therapy after this because this role tore him up so much. This is a visually impressive, well-made, well-conceived film that fell completely flat to me. And I understand that I'm in the minority, and I'm not like an A24 hate. I love A24. We did the best horror films of the 2010s, and Zach Beckler and I, who's also a horror director, we said Green Room was our favorite horror film of the 2010s. I love The Witch, and I love the discussion is how, since we're fans of horror, Lisa, it's been really neat since maybe 2014, 2015, 2016, when we started getting Spring, The Witch. It Follows, these art house horror movies, The Babadook.
Really slick tension builders. They're not films that rely on gore and silly jump scares.
Absolutely.
And that's what I appreciate about them. You've got films that I go back to The Strangers, and what was that, 2008?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that film really standing out to me as an incredible slow burn that just creeps under your skin and just won't let go. And I love A24. I think A24 is incredible at the slow burn horror where you just don't feel right. You know, like you can go see a Friday the 13th movie, or you could go see Texas Chainsaw, and you know they're going to be gross, and you know they're going to be weird, and they're going to be, you know, people's bodies left and right, and you kind of laugh at the silliness of some of it, and, you know, oh, there's some gore. I mean, you go into a movie like The Human Centipede, and you know it's just going to be gross.
Yeah.
And that's a different kind of horror than what A24 really does. Like, in general, A24 has these movie makers who just know how to not make you feel right. Like, it's that psychological bug that gets into your brain and you're just done for. Like, you love it or you hate it. You can't stop talking about it right away.
For me, I love it. I fully embrace A24. I know like some people kind of make fun of their movies, and I know that the so-called like hardcore horror fans who are essentially just slasher fans from the 80s, and they hate when horror's not that. They really dislike these movies because the way they're marketed sometimes, the way they're shown to audiences, they're very slow burny. Sometimes they get a little too precious. I think the way for Hereditary for me though is like The Black Coat's Daughter is one of my favorite horror films of the last, I don't know, 20 years. Have you seen The Black Coat's Daughter?
Shame on me, I haven't. Oh. I have the book. Wow. It's actually sitting. Oh no, that's The Boatman's Daughter. Never mind.
The Old Man in the Sea.
I keep. Oh God, I hate that book. It's a terrible book ever.
I don't want to give away too much for you then about it, but it's about loneliness and how.
Okay.
And just there's a couple lines in it that gut me, and the movie Session 9 absolutely wrecks me. How Simon pursues the weak. I think The Dark and the Wicked is another movie about.
Oh, that's a great one.
Alienation and this demon who wants you weak. And I see the DNA of Hereditary in this. Like, this cult wants to weaken this family and then take them over.
Yes.
But the thing for me, though, is from the beginning, I don't know why. And we were just talking about this off air. I don't really examine movies to look for twists. I really just try to let movies wash over me.
Absolutely.
But from the beginning of this one, like, I don't know who most of you people are. I'm like, oh, she's into something. And then the creeper stares. And then you just see triangles in rooms. You hear the clucking. You hear the birds. You hear the treehouse. You see the breathing outside. You see the writing on the walls. I knew immediately that Anne Dowd was someone who was up to no good. And when she taught her that, when she taught
that
her
incantation,
I was
just
like, oh,
read it.
man.
Don't worry what language it is.
Yeah, I was like, she is setting you up. And then just watching this cult who, for 40 years, has tried to put this one of the gods of hell into someone so they can get riches. And the clip, so I tried to watch everything I could about Hereditary, all the making ofs, all the documentaries, the dead meats, the explained. I watch everything wrong with it. And I love that the guy in the everything wrong with Hereditary is like, this movie is 67% foreshadowing. And that is correct. And I also think that they said that this is an Ocean's 11 movie, but for a coven. And it's about a bunch of...
That's a great way of putting it.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's about a bunch of Payman worshippers who have spent 40 years trying to put this into a male host.
Yes.
Just so they can get rich. And the whole, like, what I don't like is, I'm talking a lot, Lisa. You are very eloquent, and you have the SibList, your new podcast. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just haven't been able to dump this for a long time, so I really appreciate you letting me unpack.
Oh, don't worry, I'll get my turn.
Yeah, if I'm unpacking, I have like a suitcase the size of a room here. But it's this family, and Zach Beckler and I were talking about this. He directed a wonderful movie called Interior. It's on Amazon Prime. Basically, what I said this movie was I felt like I was walking towards a mountain that was 50 miles away, and it still looks huge, and you just walk towards it. You know exactly what's coming. Like the mountain, like you just see it, and you just walk towards it slowly. I knew exactly, I don't know why, but everything in this movie, setting them up, like just putting them in, I don't know. And my buddy's like, exactly, that's why you're so gutted at what's happening to this family. Mm-hmm. But this family, from the start, they're very, it's very dour. They're very down. We never see them happy. We never see them enjoying it. So as they're getting torn apart, we've never had enough alone moments for them. And people say that this movie explores grief, and like mental illness, but Ari Aster said that there isn't any mental illness in it. It's just about a mom, a grandma who wants money and puts their people through the ringer. And I think it takes out any agency. I think it takes out any grief. I think it takes out what makes one of my favorite movies is Take Shelter. The ending of that movie.
That's an amazing film too.
Guts me when you see him, and it's like, is it schizophrenia? Is it the end of the world? And it gives them agency. And like the latest Halloween movie, all agency was taken away from Michael Myers. His bus was wrecked by the doctor. He escaped. He got hit by a car and brought to Laurie Strode's house. It's the least frightening Michael Myers ever. And in this one, it's this cult who we never spend time with. They just want money. We have a already dour family surrounded by beautiful cinematography and performances, but nothing about this movie made me feel anything. I felt no grief. I felt no terror. I was like, man, these people put a lot of work into wiping this family out to get some change. Like I bet you some of the original members are dead. Like they got brand new. Like what if you're a member of Paimon and you've been there for 6 months? Like you're not. Like, it's just I felt nothing. I didn't like the villains. They just want some change in their pockets. There's nothing really scary about it. They show you the triangles on the ground. They're like, oh, that's fine. They show you the body who disappears. I'm like, oh, they took that. Like everything about this movie. Oh, where's that rug? I'm like, great, she's part of this. And the miniatures, like everything is just. It's all like, people are like things you missed in Hereditary, and I'm like, no, you didn't miss anything in Hereditary. Because they show, right, Lisa, they show you everything, and so this movie has had no surprises for me. And I know everyone's like, man, Mark is being negative, but like I'm not used to this. 6 years of Mark talking, and this is the first of a beloved horror film.
This is a huge episode. That's your tagline right there. In 6 years, this is the first episode where Mark rants.
Yeah, but I don't want to be the person who hates it because it's any A24. Like we talked about it. I love the movie Mother. I don't go into movies with expectations, or I don't let trailers fool me. I just watching this movie. I don't even think I watched a trailer for it because I just heard the reviews. So I'm like, I'm going to go in and watch this. So I wasn't sullied by a preview. It was kind of me watching it, and I don't know. I want to hear more. How'd you enjoy this? What was your experience like with it?
So it's funny that you say there were no surprises because when I watch horror films, I've seen far too many. I've seen far too many movies in general. Jump scares do not work on me. The only jump scare that will work on me every single darn time to the point that I'm aggravated by it is when you've got somebody driving along and there's like another car or a truck that like slams into them. Every single time that will make me
Final Destination.
Oh my God. Well, it just like there's two different reasons for it. People who know me will go, well, it's because of this. The other reason is I don't know why. For some reason, maybe something in my brain. So in 2014, I was actually struck by an SUV while I was walking in a crosswalk.
Oh, wow.
So I'm good. I'm fine. I can walk, but I have a metal rod in my leg. It's a whole thing. But don't use your phone while you're texting. Or don't use your phone while you're driving. A teenage 17-year-old girl got out of the car with her phone in her hand.
Oh.
So it's a whole other thing. So don't be texting while you're driving. But, watching Insidious 3 really whacked me one because I never saw that coming.
Well, the crunchy legs?
She gets hit by a car, and that's how she ends up in the thing. But even before, the only jump scare that would ever work is that car coming out of nowhere. So I go into these films, I see the jump scare coming, as you do once you've gotten used to these patterns. So I go into Hereditary. Like you, I didn't know anything about it because I knew there was a scary movie coming. I knew it was about a matriarch who passes away, and that was it. I knew Toni Collette was in it because I have my trailer blackout thing. So I sit down in the theater. This is the only film that not only has the jump scare worked, I sat up and exclaimed out loud in the theater. I sat up and went, Jesus Christ! In the theater out loud in this movie. And I'm like, this is the greatest movie in the history of the world because